welcome to the Prophecy Club. We're going to have Zen Garcia back with us today. As you recall, he's a webmaster, video producer, radio host, author of 7 books, ministry for 10 years. We had him on once before talking about Lucifer, father of Cain, his book, and today he's going to continue with some additional information. So, Zen Garcia, welcome back to the Prophecy Club.
Thank you, Stan. I appreciate the opportunity, and I've received a lot of feedback from your listeners and from those that were able to find the broadcast on YouTube or on the Prophecy Club website. And it seems to have blessed a lot of people and made them look again at what they thought they knew from the biblical revelations that are shared in Genesis chapter 3 and chapter 4. And the one question that I always receive from those is how I explain the King James Version rendition of Genesis chapter 4:1, which is that verse, and Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. Because for most people, if they think they understand that from what it seems to say, they will automatically disregard everything else, like the prophecies contained in Matthew chapter 13, where Christ speaks about this as revelation for understanding the word, the opposition, the enmity of the goat and the sheep, the wheat and the tares, all those things that are played out throughout Scripture, the differences between Isaac and Ishmael, Jacob and Esau, even David and Goliath, as this enmity between these two seed lines plays out through the entirety of Scripture. So I thought we would begin again just with a real quick review on Genesis 4:1 and then move into the consequences that are detailed in Genesis chapter 3 as to the consequences of Adam and Eve eating this fruit, and whether, if it were a literal fruit, how could it result in the consequences that are laid out there in Genesis chapter 3. Reviewing Genesis 4:1, the King James Version says, and Adam knew Eve his wife, the semicolon, and she conceived and bare Cain and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And I brought up in the first part of the show that we did out of the 5-part series, when we did the last review on all this, I talked about the Targums and how they were translations of the Aramaic translations of the original Hebrew Torah, and how they came to be utilized in the synagogues once the people came back from exile in Babylon, and how all these Targums seem to provide extra and detailed information on the veiled nature of some of the things that are written within the King James Version. And so looking just quickly at the Genesis 4:1 from the Palestinian Targum, it says, and Adam knew his wife Hava, who had desired the angel, which is a portion that is left out. And then there's a semicolon, and she conceived and bare Cain, and she said, I have acquired a man, the angel of the Lord. And she added to bear from her husband Adam, his twin, even Abel, which is spelled with an H there. And so if we look at the extra information that is provided, and Adam knew his wife Hava, who had desired the angel, her desiring the angel is what leads to, and she conceived and bare Cain. And she said, I have acquired a man from the angel of the Lord. And we know that in the King James Version, it just says, I have acquired a man from the Lord. And so her desiring the angel and her conceiving and bearing Cain, and that her receiving a man from the angel of the Lord, we know in the book of Job that when the sons of God are called to counsel, that Satan was found amongst them, and that he indeed is an angel of the Lord. And so if you look at the details that are added to this particular passage and what the semicolon, as far as marking the separation between the two clauses, her desiring the angel results in her bearing her conception and her bearing Cain. And she says, I have acquired a man from the angel of the Lord, which makes sense. And she added to bear from her husband Adam his twin, even Abel. There's even today in modern terms, it's called heteropaternal superfecundation, which means that a woman having sexual relations with two different men and having children from twins from both fathers. And that really Adam and Eve eating from the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, Adam repeats the action, and the result of Adam repeating the action and knowing his wife Eve is that Abel is born, and that Cain, because we know that Cain is ill-natured, he's also called the murderer, he's a murderer, a liar, and a deceiver, and that Satan, or Lucifer, that he has those kind of qualities, and that Cain's inclination is after his father, which, if you understand this revelation, makes complete sense, and it helps us to understand why it is that Cain all of a sudden would, commit murder and lie to the Lord about having done so, which if he were the son of Adam doesn't make sense, because Adam is innocent in his nature, and nor does he have the nature or the inclination for these kind of behaviors. And so understanding that second part, and she added to bear from her husband Adam his twin, even Abel, helps us to understand that this is indeed what is going on in the garden parable, where it talks about Eve eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and that the result of her having done so, that there's a sexual connotation involved with understanding this parable. For when we look at the actual consequences of the Genesis chapter 3 and the things that were laid out there, which I'll read here, it says, "Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception, semicolon. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, semicolon. And thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee." Now, if her eating actually from a real tree, some kind of piece of fruit, whether it's an apple, a fig, or a pomegranate, how is it that it would result in her having sorrow and conception, and that she would bring forth children? It just does not make sense. But if you understand the garden parable in the revelation that we're speaking of today, and in what we did in the previous show, this absolutely makes sense. And it also speaks about, if we break down this particular passage, why is it that the Most High would reaffirm that her desire should be focused towards Adam and focused on her marriage, unless she had somehow had some kind of tryst or had her affection directed to somebody else? And it would make a lot more sense if the Most High were remarking upon her sexual liaison with the Nakash and was reaffirming and asserting to her that rather than adhering to Satan's sly word and being beguiled in such way, that she should concern herself instead with regard for her husband and her marriage. And so, looking again, as I said in that previous passage, "Unto the woman I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children." So if you understand that the consequences of her eating the fruit resulted in her being pregnant with Cain, and that would be the reason why she would bring forth children, but that she should focus, instead of being tempted by Satan and his sly words and gestures, that she should focus, rather her desire should be to her husband, and that he should rule over thee, rather than her, going off and running around with other beings, and in this case, being Satan. And then the other thing is that Adam would have to work the soil in order to bring forth sustenance to feed his family, that the result of that would be that he would have future progeny, and that their loss of immortality and their bright nature, their falling from grace, being cast out, exiled from paradise, banished here to the earth, and that being transformed into flesh form is where all of these prophecies would play out and take place, in that she would give birth to Cain, who would be the first hybrid child of the devil, a scion of the serpent, the Nakash, and that Satan, speaking to Satan now, the Most High tells him that he would put enmity between her seed and thy seed, which again does not make sense if we're actually speaking about a literal tree and a fruit from some tree. Again, if you understand that this is veiled and that the reference is speaking about and denoting some kind of sexual connotation associated to the garden parable, then that makes sense. And if you understand that her having desired the angel resulted in her conception and giving birth to Cain, and that Cain was indeed the son of the serpent, all of the other things in the Bible, John chapter 8, the Most High, or Christ telling.
We'll be right back after this message. Let me read 2 Thessalonians beginning at 2:8. And then shall that wicked be revealed, then I'll skip down, whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders, with all deceivableness of unrighteousness. It's saying that Satan is coming with power, signs, lying wonders, and a great deception. And then verse 11 says, and for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. I have to tell you, I thought this Error in the Church was going to be a really good series, but now that I have listened to 9 of the 10 DVDs, brothers and sisters, I have to say, if you want to keep your salvation, I'm going to say it that strong, okay? If you want to keep your salvation in the day of great delusion and deception, you better have got this 10 DVD set called Error in the Church. Now, why do I say it so strongly? I'm a pastor, okay? I grew up in church. I've started 3 churches, and yet I had no idea of some of this stuff. I'm going to say that if you don't get this, you could very well fall into the deception that is coming. I beg you, it is that good. Get this set. 10 topics: mysticism, New Age in the Christian Church, Kundalini Spirit, Chrislam, Seeker-Friendly, Emergent Church, Kingdom Now Theology, Hyper Grace Movement, G12, Tazy Worship, False Christ, and What Else Is Wrong. 10 DVDs valued at $300. We're asking a pre-order gift offer of $180. Now, would you give $180 to know that you won't fall away? Guys, I mean, I have to say, it's that serious. Call Prophecy Club, 785-266-1112. 785-266-1112. Error in the Church. You'll be glad you did. In 1980, an angel came to Dmitri Duduman and told him that it is written in the Bible and that America will be defeated in 1 hour by Russia. I just made a brand new DVD covering all of the secular, real-life proof that Russia really is preparing to do exactly that. Topics are: Arise, Devour Much Flesh, Russia in Prophecy, Russia Now Rich and Strong, Russia's numerous military expansions, Ukraine and how it is making the bear angry. Russia is warning the U.S., but we're not listening. Russia is building their military, modernizing submarines, aircraft, missiles, and their army while the U.S. is downsizing and filled with traitors and weaknesses. 2.5 hours, gift of $30. Go to prophecyclub.com or call 785-266-1112. That's The Russian Bear Rises at prophecyclub.com or 785-266-1112. Order today. And now, back to the program.
All of the other things in the Bible, John chapter 8, the Most High or Christ telling the Pharisees that they are the seed of the serpent, that they're a den of vipers, how all these references fall into play, and they align with the Matthew chapter 13, the parable of the wheat and the tares, which we'll go into, and also with the enemy having snuck into the garden and sown the tares. We'll go into that here in just a minute, but this is the reason why, if Cain were the son of the serpent, the seed of the serpent, and Abel the firstborn son of Adam, and that after Cain murdered his half-brother, and it says in Genesis 4 that, and Adam lived 130 years and begat a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. Well, why would it emphasize begat a son in his own likeness after his image if both Cain and Abel were indeed the children of Adam, and that both of them were followed after the pattern and the image and the similitude of Adam? It makes greater sense, and we would understand why Genesis 4 verse 3 emphasizes that Seth is begat in his own likeness and after his own image, if Cain were indeed not a child of Adam's and not after his likeness and similitude, nor his nature, inclinations, and behavior patterns. And so that's why also we see that this particular verse, and Adam knew his wife Eve, from the Genesis chapter 4, verse 1, why it is that this verse is found at the beginning of chapter 4, when we see chapter 4 is a commentary on the lineage of Cain and talks about the first 10 generations which lead up to the flood, and then the children and lineage and bloodline of Adam start in Genesis chapter 5, and they are listed in detail there in Genesis chapter 5, so that you have the seed of the serpent listed in Genesis 4 and the seed of the woman listed in Genesis chapter 5. And then the whole thing with Christ's lineage and how it speaks about this in Luke chapter 3, verse 23 through 38. It says, which was the son of Enos, which was the son of Seth, which was the son of Adam, which was the son of God. And there's nowhere mentioned in this particular passage Cain. If Cain were indeed the firstborn son of Adam, you would think that he would be listed in this particular passage.
Okay, let me just jump in here. Let me see if I'm playing this right. You're saying that Cain was fathered by Lucifer, and then you said that our understanding also of the tree of knowledge of good and evil was not exactly right, and you're saying that Abel is actually the son of Adam.
Right.
Right.
Right, and that Lucifer is the father of Cain, yes. And that would be the reason why we have in Genesis chapter 3, when the Most High is speaking to Satan as to what is going to happen now that he beguiled Eve, and that Eve ate from this tree of the knowledge of good and evil, this fruit from this tree of the knowledge of good and evil, why it is that there's going to be enmity between these two different seeds, and how it is that eating this fruit, in fact, really did result in two different seed lines being born, and how Eve is called the mother of all the living because she is the mother of both seed lines, but Adam is not regarded as the father of all living because he is not the father of Cain, and Cain was just his stepson.
Well, I do think it's interesting that Ishmael, the bad seed, came before Isaac, the good seed. Esau, the bad seed, came before Jacob, the good seed.
Right. Which I think that both of those accounts are also giving illustration and alluding to what happened in the garden and how it is that these, throughout all of history, as far as biblical history and the accounts in the Old Testament as well as the New Testament, how they are linked to this enmity between these two different bloodlines and how it all plays out. Now, one other thing in regard to the lineage of Christ and how Cain is not included in that, there are two other accounts where the genealogy of Christ is listed, and if people look to the Cave of Treasures as well as the Book of the Bee, which are apocryphal or pseudepigraphal texts, extra-biblical, extra-canonical, but they also give a detailed accounting as to the genealogy of Christ, and in both of those accounts, Cain is not listed in the genealogy of Christ as well.
So your conclusion, in summary, is
that, in fact, what it's speaking about as Eve eating from the fruit, from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that this was an actual sexual act which resulted in the birth of both Cain and Abel as half-brothers, twins, and that they were from opposite fathers, and that this is where the enmity between these two seed lines began and would play out until Christ comes again, and how he spoke about this specifically in Matthew chapter 13. And he said that this knowledge was important and that even the many prophets and kings did not understand this as revelation.
Okay, so tell us why we should get your book, Lucifer, Father of Cain.
Well, I think the most important thing, even though this is not a salvation issue, is that it helps one to understand why we have the prevalence of evil in the world even today, and how it is that the New World Order elites, those that claim the divine right to rule, and that also understand this revelation and do not claim to be from the line of Adam, but know that they are from their father, the devil, and that they're ruling from behind the scenes, how all of this then falls into place and makes sense, and that it all bears again upon Matthew chapter 13, which we can go into in the next segment, which Christ speaks about and cites specifically in that passage to help us to understand this information so that we can understand the nature of the world that we're living in today, because a lot of prophecy was written for the final generation.
How's this tie in with the giants and with the Nephilim and also the UFO and the aliens of the end times?
All of that, too, is hinged upon the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, because the giants and the incursion of the Watchers was specific with the daughters of Cain, and that the giants are specific to the line of Cain and the seed of the serpent. That's why also we have the prophecy in Genesis 3:15 nipping at the heel and crushing the head, which we can also talk about that as well in the next passage. But all those things link to and are hinged upon this discernment and revelation. The Prophecy Club has exclusive rights right now to the second edition, the printing of Lucifer, Father of Cain, and that this particular edition includes 50-plus pages of additional information and revelation, which is linked to and connected to this as discernment. And so you can't find this information as far as the second edition anywhere else besides the Prophecy Club.
Okay, guys, if you'd like to get his book, Lucifer, Father of Cain, we ask a gift of $25 to help us continue on the radio, and you can get that by calling 785-266-1112. Grab your cell phone, 785-266-1112. Grab your cell phone, type it in right now, 785-266-1112. You're going to order a Lucifer, Father of Cain, and if you want to give more than just the $25 donation, that would be much appreciated. And if you'd like to get it online, you can go to prophecyclub.com, prophecyclub.com, prophecyclub.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your gifts of support. God bless.
Brothers and sisters, God wants us to help His side win the battle for souls. The Prophecy Club is on the tip of God's spear. Join the battle and prayerfully consider supporting the Prophecy Club with your gifts of support. We would not be here without your prayers and generous financial support.
Now from the Prophecy Club, some exciting opportunities for you. Do you think you could lose your salvation? Oh, no, I can hear you right now. No, not me. I know my Bible. I love Jesus. I go to church. Not me. Let me read 2 Thessalonians beginning at 2:8. And then shall that wicked be revealed, then I'll skip down, whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders, with all deceivableness of unrighteousness. It's saying that Satan is coming with power, signs, lying wonders, and a great deception. And then verse 11 says, and for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. I have to tell you, I thought this Error in the Church was going to be a really good series, but now that I have listened to 9 of the 10 DVDs, brothers and sisters, I have to say, if you want to keep your salvation, I'm going to say it that strong, okay? If you want to keep your salvation in the day of testing, in the day of great delusion and deception, you better have got this 10 DVD set called Error in the Church. Now, why do I say it so strongly? I'm saying I'm a pastor, okay? I grew up in church. I've started 3 churches, and yet I had no idea of some of this stuff. I'm going to say that if you don't get this, you could very well fall into the deception that is coming. I'm talking about the deception that's in the church. It's that desperate. I beg you. I implore you. What can I say? It is that good. If you've ever believed anything I've said, get this set. Error in the Church. 10 topics: mysticism, New Age in the Christian Church, Kundalini Spirit, Chrislam, Seeker-Friendly, Emergent Church, New Reformation Church, or Kingdom Now Theology, Hyper Grace Movement, G12, Tazy Worship, Tangible Kingdom Movement, False Christ, and What Else is Wrong. 10 DVDs valued at $300. We're asking a pre-order gift offer of $180. Now, would you give $180 to know that you are not going to be deceived? You won't fall away? You won't lose your salvation? Guys, I mean, I have to say, it's that serious. Call Prophecy Club, 785-266-1112. 785-266-1112. Error in the Church. You'll be glad you did. You must get these 2 DVDs. Outside of the birth of Christ, I think this is the most important information since the flood. Prophet Ephraim Rodriguez was shown in a vision that a large meteor will hit near Puerto Rico and cause a 1,000-foot tsunami there, but it'll be 200 to 400 feet high and go 100 miles inland on the east coast of America. It will also split America from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico, and large chunks of California will fall into the ocean, killing millions of Americans. In a second DVD, I put the whole picture together, quoting 6 other people that also saw a large meteor hit Puerto Rico, 4 for the tsunami hitting the east coast of the United States, 6 the split of America in 2 pieces, 3 large chunks of California falling into the ocean, 3 also saw the reason for this is because America forces Israel to split her land. Get both DVDs valued at $60 for a gift of $30. It's good for the ministry, but you have to have this information. Call 785-266-1112 or go to prophecyclub.com. Get the meteor offer today. Get it today.